Hello YouTube, Ronin Kaze. I finally figured something out, which is dumb that I had to figure out. Hey, we're in Linux Tuesday, Fallout 76. I'm going to places that I haven't ever been before. Okay, what did I just figure out? If I have a big delay, then the talking goes past the actual video. So I try to do that fast instead of me just cackling like a hyena. Why don't I hit some buttons? Ageless Linux. You may remember a while back that I talked about California law 1043, I think it was, where it was going to put an age limit. Not an age limit, but you had to identify yourself through the operating system. And my complaint was there's a bunch of people on YouTube that are whining about it, don't have a solution, but are just saying, no, we shouldn't do it. And one of the things that's different about Linux than Microsoft and Apple, and by extension, Android and iOS, because those are run by Google and Apple, is that the Linux community kind of figures it out. I started using CachyOS. I did a lot of research. I'd used Ubuntu before. I'd used Knoppix Linux back in the day. I've always dabbled in Linux, but it never could play games. It can play games now, so I'm a CachyOS person. I like Arch the way it updates. I like the line by line everything, right? I like to see everything, so I'm very happy with that. I rail against people that say Arch is too difficult for beginners. It's just like these people, you know, you're limited, don't limit the rest of us by your limitations. So I got into Cachy, and people said, well, it's always updating. It's going to break things. And I was like, I never had anything break. And DOSBox broke. And it's broke. And it's been broke. And then it's been fixed. And why am I telling you that story? Because the community comes up with ideas. These are people that they're taking their creative talents, and then they're doing things in computers. So you might make cars or juice up engines or whatever that kind of stuff's called, with wrenches and screwdrivers and such. But they do it with computer stuff. So there is a website called Ageless Linux, and there is a link to a video that I saw recently that they're addressing this, right? And I've told you this a long time ago. Hybridization. I'm going to exploit. No matter what game mode you have. I'm going to tell you this. I made a ton of videos about, in the Division tool, using a Vile Mask and Jammer, you could go through legendaries and kill everything and never get touched, because you could be behind a wall, you're putting out an EMP pulse, and then anytime someone has a status effect, then they take damage, right? So I just made a career out of that. They've nerfed that now. It's okay, YouTube. I'll find another exploit. And this is what I count on. And this is kind of a Gödel theorem, right? So you might have a set that has everything described, but there's always going to be one thing that can't be described. You're never going to be able to make a law that someone's not going to find a loophole for it. Think about during wartime in the United States, if you're a traitor, you could be put to death, but people during wartime, they've still shared secrets. They've still done all that. I think it was 1957 or 1947, the Rosenberg case. I'm not sure. Maybe someone should look it up. If I'm good, I'm not going to be good. I'm not going to look it up. Because the point is, no matter what the consequences, people still are going to break the law. This is a small L law, and we've already come up with one solution. And I think by January 27 comes around, the Linux community will be fine. What I'm against is alarmists. Now, those alarmist YouTube channels will say, because I sounded the alarm. I try to snipe with an assault rifle, and then I don't do a lot of damage. So then I switch to my pipe sniper rifle, and I get the same results. I'm too far away. They might say, because I sounded the alarm, now that's what did it. I don't want to take credit. I don't care who gets the credit for it. But I have faith why Linux is better. I told you a story about the VirtualBox. Because in Microsoft, they still get problems all the time. If you're still on Microsoft, you're just doing it either you're lazy or you're scared, but you don't care about your computer. You don't care about your security. You don't care about your privacy. And for us old codgers, of course, we don't want to change, but I'm telling you, that's one of the things that helps keep you young. I may have to ask AI for for a survey or for studies that bolster my claim, even though those studies might not exist, but then I can do it because you're going to be too lazy to not check it. Because Ronin Kaze tells you to check everything. So the community will find a way. If you have an Android tablet, you can put, or an Android phone, you could put Linux on it. If the only reason I'd put it on a phone is if I could plug it into a monitor and run Linux desktop off my phone. That's the greatest computer thing that you can have, right? You have Linux on a device that's with you all the time. Now, you don't want to run it off your screen, but you just want to plug it into a TV or whatever. Then you have a Bluetooth mouse and keyboard. That we get hung up on the portable community about keyboards and trackpads and all that stuff. Man, if you're still using the man's keyboard and the man's trackpad, get yourself Bluetooth stuff and be done with it. If you're really a trackpad devotee, then go find Bluetooth trackpads. The only thing will be if you turn your iPad into a trackpad, but that's kind of a waste to have an M4 or an M5 or an M1 even as a trackpad. So I went to that first place in Fallout 76, and the person there was like, until you find all these pieces and fix my transmitter, I don't trust you. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm going looking for this transmitter. I sneak a lot because in a lot of RPG games, when you're sneaking and you snipe, you get a critical hit bonus. So, like, that's a thing. But we're not here necessarily for Fallout. We're here for Linux. And so I'm confident, just like I'm confident that when you get a open source piece of software that's on GitHub or something that someone's made, that the community is going to look at it. If the community doesn't look at it, or that someone makes it where it's proprietary, the whole Linux community kind of shuns that, or there's a negative stigma on those kind of things. Like there's a stigma about Ubuntu because sometimes they might capture your data. I don't know what the exact thing, and I don't care what it is. I know Ubuntu is a relatively safe distro as far as getting support for it, but I also understand in the community that they're not real fond of it. And so that was one of the reasons I just didn't stay on Ubuntu, and I'm glad I moved to Cachy, and Cachy has been great for me. But like I said, really what you care about is the desktop environment. And in that case, I use KDE. I tried to switch to Hyperland, which is a tiling manager. I'm not smart enough to figure out a tiling manager. I mean, I could in DOS, but not in Linux. So it's, I just said, okay, I'll have these tiles and I'll load a program into that tile. It's obviously not that. I'm not that smart. And really, when I got into it, is it really, yes, I'd like to switch to it in one way and maybe it'd be faster. I was going to run a large language model. I ran the large language model anyways, and it was meh. I am arguing with Gemini. When I tell Gemini I want to have segregated sessions, and the latest thing I came up is I want to have a meta language that we program. So when I want it to do something specifically and be protected, be virtualized from the rest of it, we can make that kind of scenario. I'm not the only person who does that. Gemini said about 5% of the people do that, have developed a virtualized kind of situation. And so if I care about privacy, why am I using AI Gemini, especially Gemini Google's? Well, I'm just trying to, at this point, as I'm transitioning over, I'm 100% Linux now. I think I installed Windows 10 on a virtual machine. It was a horrible experience. But the thing is, what I've decided is I want to see, what's all the buzz about this AI? And I've tried to use it. I got the Pro thing where I get 100 images a day and 2 to 3 8-second videos, but you can never reach that. I still run into the thing where I said, don't forget anything, and then I'll have it try to generate an image and it forgets everything we talked about. So here's what I think. I saw a video on the Doge guys that used OpenAI or ChatGPT to cut programs out of the thing. And their prompts were very specific and very not rambling like mine. So when I talked to Gemini, I said, my prompts are not that good to get exactly what I want. And basically, this is, okay, time out. Any of you that have ever had to produce numbers at work to prove a case or disprove a case, the numbers just tell whatever story you want. It's really the first person in with the numbers. Usually is unassailable because no one's going to take the time to do that. Now, I did that a lot in my career where I'd have the numbers, but like I cared what the numbers said. And it's all about story and narrative and those kind of things. So the AI prompting situation is really what kind of result do you want, and that's what you're going to get. The prompts I do, not always. Generally, I hit some internal guardrail where you're not allowed to do it. So the thumbnail you saw today was of a screenshot of me in this cabin in Fallout. And when I said, hey, generate it, and I tried to do everything, there's a picture of Ronin Kaze, and then it said, I can't do it because I was in the Fallout universe, and because it's toxic in the Fallout universe, and it's a person. I'm guessing it just says I can't do that. It says you could re-say it. I said, yes, do whatever you want me to do, just do it. And then the other thing, I think it has to say that it's AI, it's generated by AI, and so it puts its little nano banana in there kind of thing. Or it's an ad, I don't know which one it is. Because you got to take everything the AI says with a grain of salt, because you don't know if it's manipulating you. Is it praising you because that's what it's supposed to do? And this is the danger. I understand why Linux really doesn't, you can load large language models and everything, but I understand why that's not a core feature of Linux. That's like an add-on kind of thing, because I don't think it's about the spirit of what's going on in Linux. And getting back to Ageless Linux, there was a problem. Someone saw it. They have a website for it, Ageless Linux. You can go to it. You can kind of read what the solution is. And you saw the video. You can watch the video as well. So that's one of my other reasons I say you should switch to Linux. We can argue about which distro. That's like arguing about which flavor ice cream you like. It's it's still ice cream or pizza, even though Chicago pizza. For those of you listening, I'm making that face and turning my head like, really, and squinting my eyes. I would do the blink meme, but I don't think that's appropriate. So it's basically your flavor, but really the flavor you're talking about is your desktop manager. That's the main flavor you're talking about. You can run pretty much anything else that you want. It's just about what makes Cachy. It's not that Cachy does anything different. It has preset up to run games. So like once you install the operating system, there's a hello screen. You hit one button and it loads Steam and all the other Lutris and those other things automatically. You don't have to do that. You can still do all your Office stuff. And like I said, there's probably some parts that I would still use the free tools on. I don't care when I'm writing my resume. I don't care who reads my resume. I mean, Quite frankly, YouTube. They could share my resume with everyone for free. Maybe that's a hack on how to beat Indeed and Monster Jobs and all that kind of stuff. Last week I did Fallout 76 and I did the invasion thing. It was kind of cool. I'm supposed to hunt Bigfoot at some point. I don't know how I feel about that, but I would like to see Bigfoot, what they think Bigfoot looks like. Why am I switching to Linux? Part of it is the power of the community. A lot of people they're very passionate about it. The only part I'd like to bring is some like realism to it, like someone that's had to sell stuff for a living, someone's had to convince people for a living. Don't do it for dumb reasons. I can tell you, it's hard to get someone to switch off an incumbent product, right? So I was in sales and we had to do that. Our product had to be technically superior and at a better price. And Linux has both of those, so it's an easy sale. I don't have to sell you because of some esoteric thing that nerds like. I'm just going to tell you as a person. You control all your stuff. You can do all the same functions. In Windows 12, it's going to look different than Windows 11 because Microsoft can't sell you a new product or upgrade you a new product if it looks exactly the same, even though that's what all of us wanted from like maybe Windows 7 on, or Windows 2000 in my case. So YouTube, this is Ronin Kaze, Linux Tuesday. Bye, YouTube.